King of Podcasts Radio Network proudly presents the Wrestling is Real podcast, because wrestling needs us.
After watching AEW's Double or Nothing pay-per-view tonight, it's pretty safe for me to say this, that AEW right now has all of the momentum of any wrestling promotion right now on television. Any momentum that WWE had prior to WrestleMania or leading up to WrestleMania and then after WrestleMania, it's dissipated. It's disappeared. Right now, AEW has so many things they've been doing in terms of announcements, getting ahead on announcements with the normalization after the pandemic, because we're seeing more live events happening. AEW was the first one to announce live events going back on tour. They had the big announcement of their programming going to TBS next year. Plus the additional extra hour, starting on Friday nights at 10 o'clock, of Rampage coming up later this summer, which apparently Mark Henry now will be an analyst on the show. You have all of that going for you. And tonight's Double or Nothing pay-per-view, which 9 matches on the card, 4 hours of action. This show, top to bottom, a very good show. This was an A show tonight. It's getting to be like that more often. This is pissing off the casual WWE fan. This is apparent. I can go on the wrestling Twitter right now, and there are some bitter, angry fans on social media that are WWE centric. They are maybe it might be casual fans, or the fact that they do not like to see that another company has come into the fray. Now, I'm not going to say that we're getting a repeat of the momentum change that WCW had nearly 25 years ago to the day of the formation of the New World Order. We're not saying anything like that, but the kind of upward momentum is now with AEW. They have it. Now, this is not translating into saying, oh, well, the ratings are going to skyrocket here. No. I'm not even saying that the star power matches up to WWE. No. What I'm saying is that the momentum, the opportunity to grow this company, the excitement for this company, the excitement for some of the stars in this company, much like what I talked about, who's getting the spotlight, who's getting a big push to stardom in this promotion compared to what WrestleMania was coming out with. We talked about that on the 2 recap shows after WrestleMania, and I talked about, about Bianca Belair, we look at Omos, we look at Bobby Lashley, we look at Rhea Ripley, all these names, all these people, and we look at what has gone on with the direction of all of them. Yet we're still pretty upset with all the things that are happening. Now, SmackDown's still a better show than Raw. A lot of changes going on with WWE right now, which is concerning. We talked about that extensively, which overtook most of my commentary that would have been about Double or Nothing on Wednesday night going into Thursday. But that's okay. Overall, I get a pay-per-view like this. I'm invested. I'm excited. I'm into just about every match. Now, a little bit of a lull going in a 4-hour show. A couple of matches in between that, they were okay, but it did drag the show a little bit. And that's my major complaint. But there were no other complaints because the matches they gave us were well constructed. A lot of time given to building up storylines, which is what we want in our wrestling. This is at least what I want in our wrestling. This is what the WWE is supposed to be doing with their wrestling. There's such a variety of different matches and feuds and whatnot, not to mention that the Dynamite program, you're getting 2 hours worth of coverage every week to build these storylines. And when WWE has the opportunity to use 5 hours a week to get their storylines in order for a pay-per-view, look at the difference. The efficiency, the wherewithal of this company. It's not saying that everything they put together comes out absolutely perfect. But it's about as good as it gets. AEW is operating as a company like I would hope. This is the kind of thing that we had, and here's the thing. The nitpicking that the casual WWE fans and the podcast brethren, I got to say this about you guys too. The vitriol, the bitterness towards the wrestlers, towards the promotion, towards the fans, it all goes back to when this first started. And the whole thought about your thoughts about Cody Rhodes, the Young Bucks, Kenny Omega, I get it. And Tony Khan. We understand. And then you nitpick all the little things you do not like that they're doing. It does get old after a while. But then if you're going to be that way, then you're just calling yourself out. You're tagging yourself much like a political stance. Like you have a political stance, then you're alienating the other crowd. You're alienating other wrestling fans. I don't do that on this program. But I will say, and I've been saying this for years, I've always wanted other promotions to thrive so that WWE gets better. Now, when you see a program like Double or Nothing coming on tonight, are you telling me that Nick Khan and the group over there... Now, Vince McMahon probably doesn't pay much mind to this, but I think Nick Khan does. I think that the team he's brought together, they're paying attention to what's being done on the programming on other networks, wrestling-wise. This is something they're paying attention to. What is this going on right now on Wednesday nights on TNT and their accompanying pay-per-views, which they do 4 times a year? And remember, the changes we're getting, where TNT will have 4 more shows, much like these, next year. So they'll basically have 8 specialty shows. 4 of them are the big pay-per-views like this, which keep them coming like this because these are great. But then next year, after Full Gear and after All In, they won't have the stacked shows like this because then they're going to have to leave some matches for the specials. The pseudo Clash of the Champions format that'll be coming up on TNT when they do their specials. But this tells you everything right now. And it's so, what am I going to say? Fans are going to be upset if they see the AEW continues. This was a company that everybody was already really, when I heard certain things about Tony Khan making comments after the announcement or the report by Dave Meltzer in the Wrestling Observer newsletter saying that Nick Khan has had talks with New Japan Pro Wrestling. When that came out, I kid you not, wrestling Twitter, it's like they're writing the epitaph for AEW's gravestone. The comments, I'm sorry, they're ridiculous. Oh, well, I can't wait for Tony Khan's comments to be on the next episode of the new Monday Night Wars on Peacock. I can't wait for the documentary on Peacock when they use these comments against them. It's like you guys want the death knell in this company. I know why you're doing it. I get why you're doing it. It's childish. It's immature. You can do better. If you have such a thing as you see another team that you don't like, okay, much like myself, I bet you baseball fans, you have Yankees versus Red Sox fans. You might have Eagles versus Giants fans or Eagles versus Cowboys fans that don't like each other. Or basketball, you might have the Lakers and the Celtics or the Clippers, something like that, where you have hatred for the other team. But to wish death, to wish complete destruction and utter defeat, everybody used to go and talk shit about Eric Bischoff wanting to destroy Vince McMahon and the WWF. Well, that's not what's happening here. What you guys don't appear to care for, and that's fine. We know you don't care about the fact that AEW is a response. You want to nitpick and complain about every little thing because that's what you do. It's a cynicism that is rampant on the fans out there that are diehard WWE fans. The ones that relish the Attitude Era and everything that came with it, good or bad. Everything that came with Hulk Hogan and the run he came through from WrestleMania 1 all the way to today, right? You have to hold allegiance to World Wrestling Entertainment. I don't know what for. You want to be a sports entertainment fan, fine. But AEW is something different. The fact that we might have some older stars that are in here, veterans that were on the show, but let's be honest, they were not in such a prominent role in all the matches that they were standing out. If you look at the card tonight, you see the stars they have. They got a lot of young stars they're trying to build up on. And they do. And the crowd is not just popping big for the veterans. They're popping big for the homegrown stars that AEW has. The thing that Impact Wrestling or TNA has not been able to do, or had not been able to do for a long time. Ring of Honor was able to build some stars that would be somewhat legitimate, but again, they're only going to be on NXT, or if they're taken somewhere else. The idea is the fans that want to see AEW fail, they are so upset that this grassroots movement, with another billionaire on board, pumping up the money to get this up and get it on TNT. Whoever thought this was get back on TNT 25 years later. But we are here again, and this company is moving their momentum. And they're also doing it with the fact that they had 2 shows this last week and next week, with their shows not even being available on Wednesday nights. So their normal time slot is compromised because of NBA playoffs, which will be rectified next year with the move to TBS. So with that, AEW continues to build the momentum, move forward. They are making a difference. So the momentum that is necessary for them to carry forward, to get them to a better place. Now that the crowds are back, you can tell the difference. Once they get out of Daly's place and start taking themselves on the road, and we see what the crowd response is out there, it's going to be big. It's as if AEW never lost any forward movement since the pandemic. They were able to go and have certain stars retain their popularity through the pandemic, so this crowd was in lockstep with everything that was going on with programming, even though they were not there over the last 15 months to go ahead and go to the arena to watch their favorites live, and now they do. It's important, and that crowd was electric for most of the night. It was really wonderful what they had set up. Let's go ahead and break down the pay-per-view itself, and then I'll still have some comments where it comes down to. But you can't deny the momentum that AEW has right now. It's not a question. It's just a fact of life. And WWE needs to pay attention to this. They have to take notice. If anybody is, I have seriously cautious optimism in Nick Khan. Nick Khan, not Tony, Nick Khan. Because I believe he's working on trying to get the creative. Eventually, he's going to have to break it down through all different levels, which is causing a lot of stir because the wrestling fans probably don't understand what's happening here. And the wrestling press, the dirt sheets, probably also do not really understand what's happening here. Because it is a corporate structure, but Nick Khan and the team that he brings on board, it's still, they understand the corporate structure, but in terms of motivation, in terms of growing a major franchise, they think different. They act different. These guys are not just looking just to take the money and the revenue that they're getting right now, which is the folks, the CEA influence of Nick Khan and the underlings he has underneath him that he has brought on board into this company. Nick Khan set the deals. He set everything in motion. He is basically infiltrating himself into World Wrestling Entertainment to build this brand into something even more than what UFC is. To build this as a major sports franchise. He's done it. He's accomplished it beyond the wildest dreams. Tony Khan, because of all the things that are happening here, Tony Khan would have struggled to have the kind of deals that they're getting now, if not for the success, at least the continued dominance of WWE, because even with their ratings going down, they still have not lost their dominance on Monday nights. They're still able to be on the top end of the most highest rated shows on cable in the 18 to 49 demographic. They're able to continue to do that, even though the overall audience has diminished and continue to diminish. Part of that was going to be because of the normal regression of people cutting the cord on cable and going over to streaming. We already know that's been happening. This is nothing new. But now with AEW, if these pay-per-views keep doing well, if some of the changes are going to be happening with them in terms of their programming helps them out in the long run, that's all great. And remember, all the changes we talked about on Wednesday when it comes to their international presence, AEW moving towards becoming a global brand. They are going in the route of what WCW did, but it's going to be a different scenario altogether. And you cannot just look at the way the structure of the company is as to where the executive vice presidents, the four of them they have on board that are handling the day-to-day. And then the palace intrigue that's also trying to be stirred up as well. And there probably is, but I don't know if there is so much. Look at how that show was run. I don't see where there was any miscommunication or any issues they had at all. No, but the fans are going to nitpick the production. They're going to nitpick, oh, look, Mark Henry's going to be another old WWE guy. Big Show is out there, another old WWE guy. Christian Cage was out there, another old WWE guy. Well, but God forbid those guys are on TV doing anything. Somebody put out there on Twitter, hey, these are all guys that, Randy Orton kind of like canceled out. Remember? How are they treating Mark Henry, Christian Cage, and Big Show? Oh, but we don't want to talk about that. When somebody talked about Tony Khan going back, and then I asked a question. I asked, well, so he responded, and he also, made the con man in Connecticut remark. And all the diehard, casual, bubbled WWE fans, they all got in a tizzy. And that's the whole Peacock reference I talked about earlier. And then I asked the question. Without criticizing, I just asked the question. And I wasn't trying to be a smartass. So what kind of response should he have made? And then somebody wrote and said, why is the president of a wrestling company responding to the dirt sheets? And then I come back and say, you know what? 6 weeks ago, prior to TakeOver Judgment Day, Triple H commented about the story that the Observer newsletter put out that AEW was bullying NXT. And Triple H came out and talked about that. It might have not been Vince McMahon, because Vince McMahon's not going to make that kind of public comment. So it goes both ways. And if you want to go ahead and continue to go along with those diatribes, yeah, you're going to do it on your shows. You guys are going to do it on social media. That's fine. But that's not me. I see the benefits, the opportunities, and the cautious optimism I have. I am not all gung-ho AEW and then piss on WWE. No, not even close. If you thought that, you are dead wrong. I will repeat this again. Just in case you didn't understand, yours truly, King of Podcasts, any good progress of any other wrestling promotion besides WWE is good for WWE, because I want the WWE to get better, and they need the changes that are Nick Khan's doing right now. Eventually, he's gonna hit the mark. He's going to eventually get to the major core of the problem, but he has to work his way through, and he's doing it in pretty breakneck speed, if I want to be honest with you, and that is good. And then when it comes to the eventual changes that should be made to creative, it eventually will happen. Now, I'm going to make a prediction that Nick Khan will be responsible for making some significant changes to whoever handles the story writing process, the creative process, somewhere within the creative product. I believe he will have some influence on that. He will make changes, and the likes of a Kevin Dunn or Bruce Pritchard will be gone by the WrestleMania coming up next year. I get the feeling that's going to happen. That's my bold prediction. I think some changes will be made to creative. I don't know where Vince will be at that point, but I think there's going to be some changes happening before WrestleMania next year. That I believe is going to happen. It's going to be forced upon, or it's going to be something that will happen as a response. But right now, with the level and the direction that AEW is doing, there's no reason in my mind why this company cannot get Dynamite to increase their audience. Now, we don't know what the audience is going to be. We know that they've had issues when it comes to other coverage of other programming that has brought their ratings down. And that's going to still be a fluctuating issue for them because they're still trying to build stars. But just like any other wrestling promotion, which stars are out there that are going to resonate with a mainstream audience? We don't have that yet. And I think AEW is still working on that. But there are some stars in the rise that are resonating with the diehard wrestling audience, I believe, anyway. So starting off with the matches and recapping, the Buy-In had the NWA Women's Championship. Serena Deeb versus Riho was a great start. Riho never disappoints. Just great selling by her. When you see that little girl just going through all the motions, Serena Deeb is great. Just every time I see her out there, whether it's an NWA match or when they put her on AEW, she's been really good. Great finish to the match with Deeb getting a brutal knee attack to a single crab to finish off Riho, and she had to tap out. Really good match. Hangman Page, Brian Cage to start off the night. And to see the crowd getting started, man, big pop for Adam Page. And he got really the level of excitement for him. Because, there's a lot of times where he starts off the show. And he's always good. And the ratings do well for him. The crowd loves this guy. You heard the cowboy shit comments. You heard Hangman chants. You just know they were all for him. Brian Cage, good match throughout. The crowd picked up right where they left off pre-pandemic. And in the match, you had the henchman help, but Page was able to get the buckshot lariat to go ahead and finish up. Where Brian Cage continues to have the issue of not wanting to cheat. He's doing the pseudo face turn, but it hasn't gotten there yet. But the dissolution of Team Taz, or Brian Cage leaving Team Taz, will continue to be just a matter of time before they decide to pull the trigger on having that issue with the faction coming up. Of all the factions, that'll be the first one that will have some kind of a rift inside of it. AEW Tag Team Championship match. Young Bucks versus Eddie Kingston and Jon Moxley. This was, wow. Some of the effective things they do with the entrances, where if they're not going to just make an entrance that'll just fit together, that Tony Khan and the team will have no problem licensing a song that they can use throughout. And they've been using some of these old 80s songs. So taking the song from Major League and Wild Thing, the remake of the Trolloc song. I don't know whoever did the remake for Major League for the Ricky Vaughn character, played by Charlie Sheen. Now using that for Jon Moxley. It's great. Everybody's into it. But Jon Moxley was not the only guy getting the big chance. With everything else, Eddie Kingston was over big. I didn't realize how over Eddie Kingston is. But people, not just because it was Jon Moxley and Eddie Kingston together, but Eddie Kingston is over huge. With all the work he's done, AEW is going to have to realize they need to put some more time into Eddie Kingston, because that guy got himself over big in his feud with Jon Moxley and other things. Creating the rift with putting that group together with a Death Triangle and the Butcher Blade and Benton Phoenix and all that, which was great. There's a lot of things going on with that. In the match, Bucks bruise Moxley with a cold spray can. Kingston, they're damaging his left leg. Loads of near falls in the match. Definitely good Young Bucks style match. And as the heels, Young Bucks really just shitting on people. They did the Shield pose. I mean, they did the, I forget if it was Matt that did the Randy Savage pose. Just mocking other wrestlers, all the things they do. That shit is something else. And it works. Because, you don't like the Young Bucks anymore. You want to make sure you hate them and you don't like them at all. And they do a really good job of that. Super kick party to Moxie, and the no-sell was very cool. But the Bucks still overpowering. We retain the belts. Only had one title change tonight out of what they had. Casino Battle Royal, Paul White on commentary. This is a top contender match. And when you look at who they had in the match itself, there's a lot of different veterans throughout, which is good. That's okay. A mix of young and old. Christian Cage comes out first. It is not as if everybody was in there for a long, long time, but you see some people that are there for a while. Matt Sydal was not there for too long. Dusty Rhodes out there was not for way too long. And you see then Colt Cabana. And other than that, it's just a plethora of within Pentagon Jr. or Pentagon Sato Mia that was in there. But you look across the board and you just see the level of, the veterans that they have. And then they brought in all this, really just some of the talent they put on Dark or Dark Evolution, they really want to go and push up on. They really want to go and showcase a little bit. So showing Powerhouse Hobbs or Max Caster from the Acclaimed, or Isaiah Cassidy and Mark Quinn with the Private Party, or the Dark Order, or Brian Pillman Jr., Griff Garrison of Varsity Blondes, or Nakamurado, or, Serpentico, and all these other guys. It's interesting how they put it all together. And the Joker of the night, the mystery entrant, was Leo Rush, coming into the debut just after he had a run with the MLW middleweight title, which he won off of Myron Reed and then lost to Myron Reed in the rematch. So that was good. And Leo Rush, I liked him in MLW. It won't be much of a variation having him here, but I don't know what they're going to do with him anyway, how they want to use him. But it's another place to work at, and maybe he'll still get work at MLW. I hope that still happens. Much like how Brian Pillman still has a chance to go in there as well. But the interesting part of the match at the end of the night is who you had at the end of the match. It was Cage, Hardy, Jungle Boy, and Private Party that remained, and then Leo Rush coming out. And then the final two, you had a nice little tete-a-tete with Jungle Boy and Christian Cage. And Jungle Boy gets over. It's very significant that Jungle Boy gets to win this Battle Royal, and now he's going to get a chance at the world title. Wow. If I'm correct, he had a great match with Cody Rhodes for the TNT Championship. Very good match. And now he's getting a shot at the world title. That's huge. And Jungle Boy was super over. Super over above everybody. And the match with Cody Rhodes and Anthony Ogogo, this is where we had a couple of matches in between that just slowed things down a little bit. It wasn't as huge. Cody Rhodes, he's not necessarily concerned about putting himself in, getting himself completely involved or intricated in other storylines across the board. He's just sticking to his own projects. And now the project currently is not doing the TNT Open Challenges, not doing anything else in terms of, they deal with QT Marshall and the whole Nightmare Factory. It's part of that, but his newest prospect to get over now is Anthony Ogogo, who was really good. The match they put together was actually pretty well put together. Ogogo had all on offense, really talking about his boxing power, but the story was that the inexperience got the best of him because of how Ogogo wasn't really wrestling savvy when it came to trying to pin Cody Rhodes and having to make sure he wasn't put where his hand was not underneath the ropes and things like that. But the match they put together overall was fine. They didn't take a whole lot of time. And also, they didn't take a whole lot of time with the two matches they had in the middle that really just dragged things a little bit. AEW TNT Championship, Miro versus Lance Archer. It wasn't a bad match, but it did kind of slow things down. That's that little bit of a lull that they had in between. After Jungle Boy's win of the Battle Royal, that kind of just slowed things down a bit. It was fine. I'm not going to shit on the matches. They were okay. Things picked back up big time. The crowd woke up for the Women's World Title. Hikaru Shida versus Britt Baker. Dr. Britt Baker. Britt was so over. They loved this woman, and she's the heel. And what are you going to do? Britt, you would think with all the work she's done, she hasn't been in front of a crowd to really go ahead and crap on anybody to get the heat back on her. But how can you do that? Because, the crowd wasn't there to go ahead and witness her match against Thunder Rosa. And it sucks because, man, what a hell of a match that was. And just Britt Baker, not so much like a heel where she's getting herself on a winning streak and she's working her way to get wins so she can get herself back up the ranking so she can be number one contender. And this is after losing the Women's Eliminator Tournament match with Nyla Rose. And all that she did with that. But what a hell of a story they put together with her. Shida, because of all the issues they've had in between with the storyline where Baker's attacked Shida, either backstage or just in certain ways, the constant issues made Shida very pissed and got extra aggressive over Baker. Makes a whole lot of sense. Baker did get a chance to come back. She was more or less playing the face of the match, and Shida was more of the heel in the match. And then Baker uses the belt to get a near fall, but she's able to get the submission on, which she tried several times to get through, and they put so much there, and just so many good near falls with Britt Baker. Just a hell of a match. People were huge about seeing Baker win by submission. The match got a good amount of time, 17 minutes, and there you go. She's the new Women's World Champion. Great. Because we like Britt Baker. Britt Baker's awesome. She's really gotten good since she started with the company. What a big difference now. What a big difference. Great character. Great in-ring work. She's awesome. She's a star. That if there's anybody that we know that they definitely have built into an absolute star is Dr. Britt Baker. The other person they built into an absolute star, Hangman Page, is really up there as an absolute star. Jungle Boy is still on the rise. And then, Jungle Boy obviously is a spotlight on him. And then Darby Allin is just an absolute rock star out there. Him and Sting. And Sting probably took a little bit of the spotlight away because Sting, getting back in the ring after 6 years. And how's this anomaly at 61 years old still able to go? Man. Now, he's not the full physical specimen before, but again, for a 61-year-old guy, it looks pretty good. He looks really good for 61. And he can still move around. Still hit the Stinger Splash. That guy's taking jumps off the top, off the ramp. Come on. And Ethan Page, Scorpio Sky, good tag team. Ethan Page shining in some spots with the match with Darby Allin because of throwing him into his family in the stands. And then Ethan Page, they get the close-up of his facial. just maniacal, diabolical look on his face. Looked like just a complete insane freak. Was great. Fantastic. That was really just what a good standout to me. Scorpion death drop by Sting on the Scorpio Sky for the win. And Stinger. Like, just the hell of a match. Crowd was all into it. And Darby Allin selling like crazy. It was just really, I like to see that team together, which is really, really fun. Good stuff all together. AEW World Championship match. Kenny Omega defending against Pac and Orange Cassidy. A lot of nice work here. Pretty well put together triple threat match. Cassidy getting a stick in. The crowd was all in for Orange Cassidy. Omega, definitely the heel. Don Callis definitely helps out in that. So Omega's the super heel here. Cassidy, this crowd would have gone apeshit if he won. And they almost did. The way they set it up, Orange Cassidy had a chance. Like, they definitely wanted to make sure that if anybody had any doubts that Orange Cassidy could not have had a chance to win, they really put that together. They wanted to make that happen. But then we have all this plunder where Pac gets hit with every damn title Omega has as the belt collector here, which is crazy. So that neutralizes Pac. That's it with him. Cassidy's up in the ring, almost gets the pin, but then a flip around, a quick turnover to Cassidy by Omega to get the win, and there you go. 27 minutes in that match. And then we go to Inner Circle versus the Pinnacle, and if the Inner Circle lost, they would have been forced to disband, but they didn't. Now, kind of hard to go ahead and compare Stadium Stampede matches. This was really good. And, you know, you look at some of the things they did where MJF and Jericho were definitely the standouts. That was what you were looking at the most. They took a lot of time to show on that. And MJF, what a hell of a heel, man. That guy, really just happy to see him getting beat up and destroyed like he was. Because he took a lot of damage. It was really good. So him and Jericho did stuff. And overall, I really, you know, the Santana Ortiz stuff and seeing Conan with a cameo, that was awesome. The LAX reunion for a quick second. And then I got to tell you that Shawn Spears and Sammy Guevara, wow. So I want to see more of these matches in between. Like Shawn Spears, Sammy Guevara, that's intriguing. Sammy Guevara getting the pin to save the Inner Circle, significant. Especially from the one that left the Inner Circle to come back to the Inner Circle. A lot of symbolism behind that. 31 minutes in the match. Very interesting, but very good nevertheless. And the Kenny Omega win for the AEW World title, I get why they did it, but I'm not so big of a fan of all the extra opponent interference and Don Callis coming into play and that part. But, yeah, he's a chicken shit heel, and that's how he's going to win in a triple threat match. And it's a no DQ, so why not? So I get that part. It does make sense. And, you know, it's, I don't like it too much, but I understand why they did it. And that's okay. Anyway, that's where we're left at. So Double or Nothing again, an A show. They did a really good job. I really like this show. And more importantly, when you look at the whole show tonight, I just think of the fact that all the build-up to all these matches that they did leading up to it and the time they took, it's a very well-oiled machine, AEW. Now, I would say that MLW does a pretty good job with building up storylines so they can build up to their matches. Same thing goes for Impact Wrestling. They do a pretty good job. A pretty good job of building up storylines to get to their matches. And eventually, all these companies are going to get themselves right. Ring of Honor, I just haven't watched. I think I'm only interested in their pay-per-views at this point. And it'll be different once they get themselves with crowds and they have more things happening again. Probably will be a different story. But for me, it's the build. And NWA, I know, pretty less does that. But again, I haven't been watching them since they've left YouTube. Eventually, I probably will. I don't know. But the way the show's done, Dynamite is not a boring show to me. I look forward to watching it. Hell, I didn't even go to the movies on Friday night because I wanted to stay home to watch Dynamite. That's how much I'll enjoy it. I look forward to Dynamite. It is appointment viewing for me. Meanwhile, if I watch Raw and SmackDown, I'm here to watch it, but it's more just in the background than it's anything else. But AEW has learned from a lot, and I think with the crowds back, they're going to learn a lot more. They'll get a good chance to gauge and see what the real audience reaction is to everything they've been doing, and I think they've been getting it right. So we'll leave it there. And we'll definitely have more to talk about coming up this week here on the Wrestling Observer Podcast to talk about what they have coming up when it comes to Hell in a Cell, when it comes to what we see overall, the fallout for Double or Nothing, which actually I'm not going to get a chance to talk about that because it'll be on Friday. Damn it. Well, that's okay. But we'll get back to WWE and we'll see what's going to be response after everybody says this. What kind of response we get from everything. We'll find that out. So come back for another Wrestling Observer Podcast this week because wrestling needs us.
Thank you for listening to the Wrestling is Real podcast. You can find all previous episodes at wrestlingisreal.com or subscribe to the show on all major podcast outlets, including Apple, Amazon, Google, Spotify, and iHeartRadio. Follow the King of Podcasts on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram at King of Podcasts, and search King of Podcasts on YouTube, or type youtube.com/JBRASCO951. This has been a presentation of the King of Podcasts Radio Network.